We are now 4 official episodes into our journey through every episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, the retrospective series. We're watching the entire series again almost 40 years later, and we're going to build one definitive ranking from worst to best. Well, after Code of Honor, I was hoping the Enterprise would pull us out of the basement. Instead, we got The Last Outpost. This is an episode I remembered being bad that long ago, but I had forgotten exactly how strange it was. This was actually the first time we actually meet the Ferengi. These guys were supposed to become the major new villains of the Next Generation, the threat that would help define the show the way the Klingons helped define the original series. That's a huge moment in Star Trek history. Unfortunately, the Ferengi show up hissing, hopping around like angry little goblins, and attacking people with energy whips. So yes, we're going to talk about why this introduction failed, but also how remarkable it is that Star Trek eventually turned this disaster, well, into Quark, Nog, Rom, and some of the best material in Deep Space Nine. Welcome to the series, everybody. There is a full playlist below on our journey to go through all 176 episodes of The Next Generation. Drop a like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you leave a comment as we go through this if you're enjoying it. And the episode, it opens up with the Enterprise chasing a Ferengi ship that stole a T9 energy converter from an unnamed Federation outpost. We have heard the Ferengi mentioned before, but Starfleet still knows almost nothing about them. So there is a little mystery here that actually works. Picard and the crew believe they are finally going to confront this dangerous new power, and the Ferengi vessel is fast enough to make the Enterprise actually have to work for it. Then both ships suddenly lose power near Delphi R25, and the Enterprise assumes the Ferengis have trapped them. And then the Ferengi assume exactly the same thing about the Enterprise. I like the basic idea so far. Two rivals, Two rivals being suspicious of each other, that neither one realizes that there's actually a third force controlling the situation. That feels like a Trek premise. And for a while, the Ferengi are more effective when we don't see them. I hate to say that, but it's actually true. The reputation the show has built around them is far more threatening than anything we are about to meet. And as with every episode of this series, we're going to give our MVP, we're going to give our likes, our dislikes, and we are going to rank this at the very end. We're going to give it a score, and then we're going to add it to the definitive ranking of the entire series. So watching this now, the bridge material is probably the strongest part of the episode. Picard isn't panicking. He doesn't let the pride convince him that the Ferengi must be responsible. He actually listens. He recognizes the other ship is in trouble too, and that changes his assumptions when the evidence changes. That's very Picard. Data also gets one of those wonderfully early Data moments when he becomes trapped in a Chinese finger puzzle and cannot quite solve it. It's silly, but it's funny. Brent Spiner makes it charming because Data's not embarrassed by the mistake. He's just fascinated by it. We also get Geordi delivering a report from engineering for the very first time. Now, that might not seem like anything, but the producers like seeing him down there, and by season 2, we all know he ends up being the Enterprise's chief engineer. That is a tiny little glimpse of the character finally moving toward the role that's going to define him for decades. So the crew discovers a planet below was once an outpost of the Tkon Empire, a civilization that disappeared roughly 600,000 years ago. You do the math there. Both sides agree to send down teams and investigate. And this, to me, is where the episode starts to kind of fall off the rails. Falls apart. Transporter scatters the Enterprise team. The Ferengi ambush them, and our terrifying new villains, well, they step out of the shadows. Well, they don't step. They crouch, they hiss, they jump up and down like toddlers. They wave glowing blue whips around. It feels less like the unveiling of this major interstellar power and more like somebody released 3 overexcited creatures onto the soundstage. The actors were clearly being asked to make bold choices, but every choice makes the Ferengi kind of dumb. Even Armin Shimerman, who plays Latek here and would later give us the definitive Ferengi performance as Quark, had to be brutally honest about the overtop performance he did. The problem is not that the Ferengi are greedy or unpleasant. That could have been made them, it could have made them a great counterpart to the Federation. The problem is the episode presents them as this ridiculous little monster that there is no reason to take them seriously at all. I mean, hindsight makes this kind of interesting because Deep Space Nine, it doesn't throw the Ferengi away. It actually asks what a civilization built around profit would look like. It gave them laws, family structures, religion, labor disputes, all of that. And people who do not all agree with their own culture. Quark could be greedy, funny, loyal, selfish, brave, completely wrong all the time, sometimes in the exact same episode. Nog goes from a kid who can barely read to the first Ferengi in Starfleet. That's cool, right? Rom helps organize the Union. None of that depth exists here. None of it. None of the Last Outpost. Greed is not a worldview. It's basically a costume note here. And I don't think anybody watching in 1987 could have imagined what these characters would eventually become. Honestly, that later success makes the introduction look even worse. We now know the Ferengi can work. This episode simply has no idea how to make them work, and we're lucky they didn't get thrown away. So after the two away teams fight it out, the ancient Tkon Guardian appears, calls himself Portal 63. No clue why, but he does. Apparently been waiting so long that he does not even know the Tkon Empire is gone. Now, this is the one genuinely interesting science fiction idea in the back half of the show. So imagine standing at your post for hundreds of thousands of years only to wake up and discover the civilization you protected, it's gone. So the episode kind of brushes past that immediately, and Portal becomes a test for Riker, and then the Ferengi accuse the humans of being barbarians, which is funny, and then Riker has to prove that humanity has moved beyond fear and conquest. It's kind of very Picard Q-esque, if you ask me. Jonathan Frakes sells the moment as well as he can. Riker stands his ground, refuses the chance to destroy the Ferengi, and shows the kind of confidence that will eventually make him a strong first officer. I mean, to me, the solution was a little too easy. It was. A little too pleased with itself. But Riker's the person who understands what Portal is testing, so this is his episode, I guess. The frustrating part here is there was a much better episode hiding inside this episode. It was. The Enterprise and Ferengi, they could have been forced to cooperate against an ancient machine and kind of slowly reveal their completely different values. Portal could have confronted both groups with the collapse of the Tkon Empire and asked what makes civilization worthy of survival. Instead, most of the runtime is spent on them accusing each other. I mean, Ferengi comedy, I guess, and an away team scuffle that it was pretty dumb too. Then Riker passes the one philosophical test and Portal restores the ships. All is good. The stolen converters returned, and the Enterprise sends the Ferengi a box of Chinese finger traps. I guess the final joke was supposed to be a clever callback, but it also sums up the episode's biggest mistake to me. The Ferengi were introduced as the next great threat, and by the closing credits, the Enterprise treating them like literal children who can be distracted with a toy. So, does The Last Outpost work almost 40 years later? The answer is no, not really. The opening, strong, has some mystery. Picard behaves like Picard. Geordi gets to take that one little tiny step towards engineering, and then Portal 63 does give the story a hint of something bigger, which was cool. But the main event is the first appearance of the Ferengi, and that is also the episode's greatest failure. They're not frightening enough to be villains at this point. They're not developed enough to be an interesting culture, and they're not even funny enough to carry the episode as any comedy relief. I mean, its importance comes almost entirely from what later Star Trek was able to build out of that wreckage. So it's score time. This is a shorter episode because, like I said, it really wasn't very good. I'm going to give The Last Outpost a 4 out of 10. That is 1 point above Code of Honor. And that's not because it's secretly good or it's underrated on a line that we're not thinking about, but because there are at least a few usable Star Trek ideas here. And the Ferengi debut matters to the future of the franchise, even though the debut itself was absolutely terrible. I'm going to say my MVP for this episode, it's got to be William Riker, right? He recognizes the nature of Portal's test, keeps his composure when he's threatened, and he refuses the easy option of destroying the Ferengi. Could have put it into that really fast. I mean, the material wasn't subtle, but Jonathan Frakes gives the episode the closest thing it's got to a solid character center. Best moment for me, that's Portal 63 awakening and learning that the Tkon Empire is gone. And maybe the Chinese finger traps with Data too. The episode doesn't explore it enough, but the few seconds we get with the scale and the mystery, that was a story I kind of wanted more of. And the weakest part of the episode, shocker, it's the betrayal of the Ferengi. Hopping, hissing whips, exaggerated performances, destroying their credibility right when they arrive. Like I said, they were more daunting and scary before we saw them. When they were just communicating back and forth on the ships and we never saw them on the screen. That's not good. So, no, this episode does not hold up. It's worth seeing once for the historical significance, for the sheer shock of comparing Latek with Quark, right? I mean, that's cool. Beyond that, this is another rough first season episode that is much easier to discuss than it is to actually enjoy. So now our running ranking is as such. Counter at Farpoint is at number 1 with a 6 out of 10. The Naked Now is at number 2 with a 5 out of 10. The Last Outpost is at number 3 with a 4 out of 10. And Code of Honor is dead last with a 3 out of 10. Now, once we get into this more, we're not going to be able to probably go through these like this. It'll take a while each episode. But as you can see, we haven't really hit a stellar episode yet. I mean, The Last Outpost going above the Code of Honor isn't really saying a lot. It really isn't. But next up, is where no one has gone before, and I think this is where things are going to get interesting. The Enterprise is about to travel farther than anybody thought possible. Wesley is going to become impossible for the crew to ignore, and for the first time in this retrospective series, may actually have an episode that reminds us why the Next Generation became special. I'll see you guys soon.